You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Bombshell revelations expose why so many Trump lawsuits imploded. Rick Wilson, based on an article by Thomas Keeker. Trump's debanking story collapses into compliance. The bank had the power. Trump wanted the story to be about political revenge. Capital One says it was about anti-money-laundering review. That distinction matters because it identifies where the actual institutional power sat, not in Trump's grievance machine, but in a financial institution with the ability to close roughly 300 accounts after months of analysis. This is the basic shape of the case the source describes. Trump sued first, claiming he and his companies were debanked for politics after January 6. Capital One has now moved to dismiss, saying the account closures followed a careful review and red flags tied, in its view, to money laundering. That is not a culture war anecdote. It is a bank describing a compliance decision that Trump tried to relabel as persecution. The accusation is the misdirection. Trump's lawsuit depends on a familiar sleight of hand to turn scrutiny into bias, and then call the scrutiny itself abuse. That trick works only if the public accepts his preferred frame before the facts are tested. Capital One's filing is a direct rebuke to that script. It says the closure was the result of a months-long investigation, not an impulsive political act. The source notes that it is still unclear whether Trump Organization was given notice and a chance to explain the bank's concerns. That uncertainty does not rescue Trump's storyline. At most, it means the procedural details are not yet fully visible. It does not turn a compliance dispute into a civil rights fable. Discovery is where performative lawsuits die. Rick Wilson's point, as quoted in the source, is crude but useful. Trump's lawsuits tend to collapse when discovery starts, forcing actual facts into daylight. That is not a personality quirk. It is the recurring weakness of legal theater built on intimidation and publicity rather than durable evidence. Trump's litigation strategy appears to rely on the same wager every time: file loudly, contaminate the narrative, and hope the other side folds before the documents do. Capital One is doing the opposite. It is saying, in effect, that if Trump wants this litigated, the record can be made public. That is exactly the moment Trump tends to retreat from. What the article gets right and what it softens. The source is strongest when it shows how Trump uses lawsuits as a pressure campaign and a branding exercise. Where it softens is in the framing of the dispute as a kind of bank versus politician drama that is too polite. The sharper reading is that Trump is trying to convert a possible compliance problem into a partisan, modern narrative. That move matters because it is structurally dishonest. It asks the public to treat a bank's internal risk assessment as ideological punishment, while refusing to account for the conduct that triggered the assessment in the first place. Deliberate concealment gets recast as confusion. Institutional oversight gets recast as discrimination. That inversion is the whole game. The pattern is bigger than one account closure. The larger pattern here is not Trump is controversial. It is that Trump repeatedly uses institutions as props, then attacks them when they stop serving him. Courts, banks, regulators, media organizations, and professional bodies all get folded into the same script. He demands deference, then cries victim when standards are applied. That is why this story matters politically. A democracy cannot function if powerful people can treat accountability as persecution and compliance as conspiracy. Trump's lawsuit is not evidence of strength. It is evidence of dependence on systems he publicly sneers at and privately tries to manipulate. The real lesson, Capital One's disclosure cuts through the fog that this is not about hurt feelings or partisan banking. It is about a private institution making a risk judgment and a former president trying to convert the judgment into a persecution narrative. The important fact is not that Trump complains. It is that the paper trail may finally force him to confront why the complaint exists at all. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article, with the automated voice of Norman. Thanks for listening.